to Country Conversations. My name is Joey, and as always, I'm joined by...
Hey man, it's Chris here tonight. What's going on tonight, Joey?
Not much, man. We are fortunate enough again to have a special guest on the podcast tonight, Mr. Ed Stengel of the band Pawns Are Kings. How you doing, Ed?
Doing great. How are y'all doing?
Doing well, man.
Doing good.
You're in Missouri, right?
Yes, sir, I am. 107 degrees today.
Shoo-wee. Yeah, it's I'm in Ohio myself, and we were at about 92 today, so not quite where you're at. That's rough.
Yeah, it's been it has been a bit rough. Like I was saying before we started, I had this interesting deal with an HVAC guy where he was kind of showing me how to fix this AC unit. My house got struck by lightning 2 months ago, and it's just kind of been a never-ending amount of repairs and cutting down trees, and have been without AC for months now. And so, yeah, it's had to happen when things were about as hot as they could get. But you know, that's just how things go. Something's got to go wrong.
Right. Well, we definitely appreciate you taking the time to sit and chat with us here tonight. Now, obviously, Missouri is a bit away from Nashville. What's the music scene like out in Missouri, country music scene, compared to the likes of Nashville?
Oh yeah, it would, night and day difference in that. I'm actually working right now in Springfield, Missouri, with a venue called the Barn House, and the guy who owns it used to own a saloon in Springfield 12 years ago, and it was a saloon that gave artists like Ryan Bingham, Cody Jinks, some of their first shows. And he's actually pretty close with Ryan Bingham. He and his wife are the owner of that venue. And so I would say that the country scene is, I wouldn't call it entirely non-existent, because we've got 3 or 4 really solid artists. One of them is Brian Andrews has become like a phenomena on TikTok, and Sam Barber as well. They're both two people that I see popping up on TikTok all the time, and they're Missouri country artists. But I'm kind of, not single-handedly, but I'm kind of working really hard with them and a couple other folks just to get a scene going. I'm also partnering with a group called Dirt Road ENT, where we're looking for young artists that want to learn the tricks of the trade, and we offer them all sorts of things like a free music video, free band shots, press writing help, and so yeah, we really want to get Ozark, Missouri country moving forward. And of course, it would never be anything like Nashville. I think Nashville, it took 100 years to become what it is, and I don't think anybody's dangling huge record deals on a stick for anybody out here.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Ed, how close to Branson are you? Because I think for a lot of people, when they think of Missouri and country music, that's kind of what they think of, right?
I'm less than an hour from Branson. In fact, funny thing is I'm starting a partnership with Silver Dollar City. Doing some TikToks with them, and I might end up playing a festival there a little bit down the line. But yeah, I'm pretty close to all that, and got a special kind of affection for Redneck Disneyland.
That's awesome. I have not ventured out that way. I don't think you have either, Joey. Have you?
No, I haven't. Not yet. Never say never, but...
That's right.
Speaking of TikTok, yeah, that's where I found you. I think it was probably like late last year or early this year. I can't remember when I found you, but I'm pretty sure your video that went viral about how you don't hate country music, and you talked about that. And I know that's like, that I'm just from what I've seen on your account, that's probably like been one of your most popular videos. So, I've always thought you have a great perspective on music. I really enjoy watching your content. Tell us, what does country music mean to you, and just what is country music to you?
Yeah, the story of that video is so interesting because, and I've kind of talked about it on TikTok, but I'd had a partnership with Universal Records, kind of before I started talking about country music, or even started really calling myself country. I think I've always hovered in that Americana country folk area, and I always wanted to go further into it, and the people I was partnering with at the time and managers and such wanted to hold me back and push me more into like an indie folk kind of direction, and kind of like Mumford and Sons in the 2010s. But I always wanted to be more country. I always wanted to, add more and more country elements to my music. And so that video was kind of a culmination of a whole bunch of frustration. Universal Records had put a pretty small promotional budget into our partnership, and I was kind of frustrated because they didn't hold up their side of the bargain as well as I had hoped. The guy that I was communicating with was a super nice guy, and I really liked him, and I learned a whole lot from him. But kind of in the end, I felt like, I don't know, I kind of felt like I'd been left high and dry, and TikTok was not taking off, but they're the ones that convinced me to get a TikTok. And so I just kind of got frustrated, and I got tired of being rejected from publications from my singles because it was too country. They would always say, it's too country. We don't really like country. We're not into that hokey stuff, But of course I couldn't like turn my music into any of those outlets that cover like Luke Bryan or something, because they wouldn't like my music either. Mm-hmm. And so I was just like, there's a whole world of country out there that all these I don't like calling them gatekeepers. TikTok's made me hate that word. But all these I guess makers and shakers, to sound like an old guy in the music industry, they had this old understanding of country, that country's whatever's coming out of Nashville on Clear Channel radio at the time, and anything that doesn't sound like that's not country. And I just thought, like, there are so many amazing country artists out there not getting their due, pre-Yellowstone, of course, because Yellowstone kind of changed everything, getting ignored by Nashville. And when I discovered that world, I kind of felt a lot of kinship with artists like Cody Jinks, and Coulter Wall had just kind of started to get big, and Tyler Childers. And so I made that video just being like, all you people who say you hate country music, I bet most of you don't. I bet most of you would really like these artists if you gave them a chance. And, within a week, that video had 500,000 views. The most amount of views I'd ever had in a video before that was 500.
Wow.
And I had just like gone on vacation down into the mountains, which are just about an hour and a half south of me. And so I kind of put my phone away for a couple days, came back, and it was near 1 million. And I'd made another video in response to somebody just kind of talking about why I don't live in Nashville and why I'm not a fan of the Nashville scene. And that video then hit 1 million. And then I just thought, oh my gosh, like something's happening. And, you've seen it within a couple months. People just kind of put me on this pedestal as a country music guy. If I got to put my my seal of approval on any act that they're going to listen to, and I had a lot of pressure. But
yeah.
So ultimately, I'd say country music is, and I've answered this question in my videos to a lot of different people, but I think it's authentic music that reflects the tradition and lives of rural Americans, and I wouldn't say that country music's just for rural Americans, or you have to be a rural American to make it. But I'd say that overall, it has to have a bit of authenticity to the tradition that it stems from. And that doesn't mean that you have to have, lap steel guitars or any specific kind of sound. But it does mean that you exclude certain things like, 808 hip-hop beats and heavy auto-tune and the sort of things that Nashville seems to really like.
For sure.
And so, yeah, that's kind of how country is to me. And I feel like country is one of those things that once you get immersed in it, you know what it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
You might ask yourself, you hear an artist, you might think, is that country? And that's always worth discussing. I mean, people even say that about my band, and I don't really mind. Like, some people are like, I think of you as Americana, or I think of you as folk, and whatever. That's fine with me. But at least people aren't being like, now that definitely isn't country. That's not a rap song pretending to be country.
Sure. Absolutely. I read something on the internet, it was, I don't know, probably earlier this week or last week, that said country music is the most unified, divided community out there. Just for reasons like you just said, and to your point, the pop beats and all that. Let's just call it what it is. It's pop music. So I get
Yeah.
that, but so you've definitely done a lot of good stuff on TikTok, like we've talked about. What has that meant to you and your band, and just like how has that really helped you guys grow over the past year or so?
I mean, it's changed everything, really. The frustration that I felt 2 years ago, where I'd kind of been on a near 6 year hiatus with my band. We used to be a 5-piece traveling folk band. Fiddle, I'd play the banjo and did lead singing, and we had acoustic guitar and electric bass and drum kit, and we were, we'd picked up quite a bit of steam in our local scene in Missouri, and even going so far as we were going to open for a pre-fame Lumineers, and we actually passed up on it because we're stupid, but so yeah, the frustration was insane. I was getting all these scammers constantly emailing me, trying to sell me this dream. People pretending to be record executive, or not executives, but talent scouts coming and talking to me, sending me emails, sending me texts even. And I had to become a really cynical person just to avoid all those pitfalls that I see a lot of artists falling into. And so I kind of felt like a nobody again. I mean, there was a point in time where back when music blogs were like the driving force of, underground music, we had all these music blogs that knew us and covered our really early stuff, and then they all died. During my hiatus, I moved overseas to Asia for 3 years to work, so I could save up money so that we could go on a big tour. And while I was over there working, the band fell apart, and so that was really tough. And we had an album in limbo for 4 years. Finally released it in demo form. We didn't even get it mixed or mastered. I wanted to have the tracks, and of course that sank like a lead balloon because those songs weren't ready to be released. And I kind of remember feeling pretty hopeless, and I wrote our song Anymore about that feeling. People would ask me, what's the next time you're going to play? And I just say, I don't really sing anymore. I don't really play anymore. And they're asking me about, what songs have you written? Because I used to write songs, 2 or 3 a week. And I'm like, I don't really write anymore. Like, I haven't written a song in years. And so Anymore was one of the first songs I'd written, and it was kind of about feeling like I should quit and just be done with the whole thing. And so I released Anymore, and that's the song that Universal was interested in. And of course, I didn't believe them when they first contacted me. I thought they were scammers. Made them Zoom with me and show me their office. It was in Universal Amsterdam, and so they had proof for me, and so they kind of motivated me to get back into the game. But it was TikTok that changed everything. I mean, this is the first year in my whole entire music career that I am in profit from music. I have always been in the red, and that's just a typical thing for being indie. And I'm actually making money from royalties and from donations fans make and people buying albums in a way I never could have before. And TikTok is free. I get a lot of artists who tell me who think they're above TikTok, and they think that they're like, I'm not gonna do trendy dances for teenagers. And I'm like, well, that's not what it is. It's whatever you make it into. There's a billion people on it. And I realized that there was nobody on TikTok just straightforward talking about what indie country is, why indie country is starting to blow up the way that it is, how it's different from mainstream Nashville country, and you don't need to be afraid of the word country. You don't need to be like, oh, I like every type of music but country. You can say you like country. You can just talk about the kind of country that you like. And a lot of people you've probably seen these on TikTok, like guys who just they just have the song playing with the album art, and they're like, listen to this song. And there's plenty of those guys. But I realized there was nobody just talking about their experiences, being straightforward, asking questions, and taking on Nashville people when they kind of started commenting and kind of posturing a bit. And So there was kind of a niche there that I could fill. And so yeah, TikTok is, I've got sponsorships on the horizon. I mean, it's a wild world. My streams are up by 6 times since even last month.
Wow.
Just when I started focusing
cool.
a little bit more on my music and a little bit less on just recommending other artists. But I try to keep a balance, because one of the really cool things about recommending artists is that those artists will often reach out to me, and I've gotten to become friends with a lot of these artists that I really like. You know, Kobe Cuff. We talk back and forth.
Yeah.
Flatland Cavalry. They invited me to actually come to Cuba, Missouri, and hang out on their bus with them. But I had prior engagements with my wife for a birthday. It's a birthday present that I'd paid for a long time ago, but it's happening then, and so I had to tell them no on that. But I just recently became friends with the lead singer of Poor Man's Poison, who reached out to me after they'd gone viral, and I made a video about them going viral, and he had no idea how TikTok worked and was asking me some questions, and I was asking him all these questions because, you know, Poor Man's Poisons is number 14 on the viral chart, the world viral charts right now. So I had all sorts of questions about how that was changing his career, and you know, what sort of music industry attention they were getting, which is a ton. He says he has record deal offers like 3 times a day. But, you know, it's allowed me to kind of become a player in the scene that I love so much, which is a huge blessing. So for all the downsides of TikTok and all the mean people you got to deal with, it's worth it in the end, and that's the reason I'm talking to y'all.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about the most recent song that you had just put out.
Yeah, our most recent song is called "Hard Man to Love."
Yeah, it's a great one. We're loving it.
Thanks, man. I knew this song was not going to be as popular as some of my earlier ones. I've kind of had to come to terms with the fact that I got to release some songs that are for me, and some songs that are, you know, for the fan base that we've accrued. And Everyone Loves It Anymore, that's kind of the song that continuously comes up. That's our best performing song, and we're actually making some two new versions of it for an album that's on the horizon. We've one that Universal does not have partial ownership of, because they partially own this current recording, so we're re-recording it so that we can fully own it. And then Philip Bowen, the guy who did the fiddle Zach Bryan cover that got really popular on TikTok, he's going to be featured on a special remake of it that's going to be a bonus track on the album. But this song, Hard Man to Love, I wrote it nearly a year ago, and the way that our music process works, because the acoustic guitarist who was a part of that 5-piece band from our early days, he's still on board. He lives in LA. We do everything long distance now, because he works in Hollywood. He's a professional film editor and cinematographer. And so yeah, he's great. He's the guy that I really rely on. And so I normally write lyrics. For this song, I had written chords as well. I don't always write the chords for it. Sometimes I just have an idea for a song, and I ask him what kind of sounds are coming to your head when you read these lyrics. And sometimes he just has something brilliant, like Ozark Gothic. I wrote all the lyrics to it, and I think when I was playing guitar to it, it had sounded like an Irish folk song when I had done it. But I just sent him the lyrics and said, you know, what do you think of these lyrics? And he wrote that super dark, depressing, echoey chord progression that we now have on it, and that's something I really love about the relationship we have. So when I first wrote this song, it was going to be a very subdued song that would kind of have the same intonation as Anymore. You know, it would kind of be a soft, gentle song. And when we kind of build and tear down a portable recording studio whenever we record, and so he had come to my house out here in the Ozark Hills for a week. We built up the studio, and as we were recording, he's like, I want you to go as hard as you can at this song. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, I want you to use your full vocal range I want you to, kind of give me a Jeff Buckley singing Hallelujah kind of performance. It took me a long time to get to the emotional space where I could just belt it out like I was doing in the song. And I'd record it, and he'd be like, again, again. He's like, not good enough, not good enough. He says, we're not done until you've given me goosebumps. And so eventually the take that you hear was the one that got him. And we thought maybe it would be a folk song, just a pure acoustic folk song. And but as time went on, I started to hear little bits of like a 1970s Led Zeppelin no quarter kind of organ in my head. And I thought, well, that's not very folky, but it's what's coming to my head. And I got the freedom to do what I want. So we added that in, and then the guitarist Ben, he's so talented at guitar. I was just like, you can wail away at some blues riffs if you wanted, and so he kind of adds that wailing guitar in, and we worked so hard. We mixed it ourselves, but we had it mastered by somebody named an engineer named Bobby at 1979 Studios in Nashville, and they just finished mastering the Lumineers' newest album, and so we gave them a shot, and we really liked what they did with the mastering. And so ultimately the song came out, and some of our fan base really didn't like it. It was not country enough for them, and I respect that. They don't have to like everything that you produce. Sometimes it's got to be a song that I really feel, and that's a song that just like cuts down to the bones of me, and it kind of talks about my struggles with you hear this all the time from artists, but my struggles with depression. I'm an adopted kid, and I was kind of going through finally meeting my birth mother and birth father, and dealing with disappointments, and kind of creating boundaries for that, and finding out a lot more about my childhood and kind of why I deal with the attachment issues I have now. And so it was kind of dedicated to my wife in some ways, just being like, I'm good at charming people at parties, but I'm a hard guy to love because I'm skittish, just from my upbringing. And I think that this song might be a song that picks up more steam down the line. It may not be something that hits right now, but I think it'll find its audience eventually. I mean, it took Annie Moore 2 years to finally start finding its audience, and the beautiful thing about the music industry now is you don't have to be a hit right out the gate. You can just slowly find the folks who like it.
For sure, man. And I mean, that's something you see often nowadays too, just with social media. Songs like Anymore, like you mentioned, songs just picking up steam later after they've been released and everything. So, but yeah, I know you said a lot of your fans don't like it, but I think it's just authentic. You can just feel it, the way that you sing it. I love the way it was produced and mixed and everything. All of your stuff, man, the instrumentation and production is amazing.
Well, I really appreciate that. And it's funny because our first two albums, the production value is really low, because we were young and we were still kind of weaving our way around the folk world, and we just kind of wanted to put something out. We didn't want to wait until we had thousands of dollars to go to a professional studio, and so it's been a learning curve. And one of the things that almost broke the whole band apart, Ben, my partner, and I almost broke apart, was I wanted a higher production value, like not a shiny Nashville kind of production value, but I'm like, I want something that is, when people listen to it, they don't think, oh, that's a rough recording. I want them to think like that's what it's meant to sound like. If it's rough, it's meant to be rough. And we kind of argued it out, and in the end, he ended up doing a really intensive shadowing of a pretty big producer who works for Universal Records, their major label. I was part of their development label, and so he shadowed him in LA for a whole summer, just kind of learning all the tricks of the trade. And when he when he was done, I think our production value skyrocketed. The first song that we produced that I just said, this is exactly how I pictured it in my head, and that's what it sounds like, was Demons in Armani Shoes, which was a huge undertaking to create. That one song, I mean, a lot of people don't realize how much effort goes into some songs, but Demons in Armani Shoes is a very layered song. All the percussion is organic. We did it all in my barn. And so yeah, it makes me feel very good to say that you like the production and the mastering, because it's been a huge learning curve for us. And there's going to be some folks who say, well, it's not clean enough for me. And that's something that's fine with me, because I don't need to spend $12,000 just to make it sound, shiny enough.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. I'm curious, especially on your perspective on this. I'm sure you've been asked this a lot, but where do you think, or how do you think somebody like Zach Bryan or Tyler Childers or somebody like that, how did they get so many fans without mainstream Nashville support? Like, how do you explain that to somebody, or how could we explain that to somebody?
I would say that Tyler Childers and Zach Bryan are a little bit different. So Zach Bryan, you might not think it just from seeing him, but he is a social media genius. I mean, every now and then I meet someone who's what I would call a savant of social media. Like, they just get it. Like, they don't need any lessons. They don't need to be coached. They just understand how it works. Brian Andrews here in Missouri is one of those guys too. He has 1.6 million followers, all from just being indie without putting any money into his TikTok at all. And that gets him, he's got about 580,000 monthly streamers on Spotify alone. And so, Brian Andrews is kind of like a younger version of this. But Zach Bryan on YouTube, he and his buddies they figured it out. I mean, that first couple videos he released was just recorded on an iPhone, and he was just playing guitar while he was on leave on his family's back deck. And there was something about the authenticity in Zach. He kind of has a bashful Midwestern kind of a demeanor that just made people fall in love with him. And I mean, he was just a guy with a dream who I think a lot of guys could see him being someone you could have a beer with and hang out with. A lot of girls saw him as the sort of guy who wasn't, unattainable. He's not like a muscle-headed supermodel. He's a good-looking guy, but he's just a normal guy. And I think he knew how to market to those kinds of people, and that's kind of why he's the people's champ, because he knew how to use YouTube, and then he kind of translated that over to Instagram and translated that over into TikTok, and he has never sold out. And that's another big thing, is he kind of refuses to allow Nashville to change him, even to a fault. I mean, the man's going to probably have released 60 songs by the end of this year or more, which every record label would say is a horrible idea. I have no idea if it's going to work out for him, if his fans are going to get tired of his music, or if they're just going to eat it all up. He could completely prove them all wrong. But also that attitude of, I'm gonna give my fans what they want, and I'm not gonna let other people tell me what to do. They love that. And I think with Tyler Childers, one thing for him is always just that bone crunching Appalachian authenticity. I mean, when he sings about his dad messing up his back and them struggling, like you believe it. When he talks about how he's got women up and down this creek, he does. And I know a lot of people who know him and grew up with him just through TikTok. I've connected with a lot of his friends and family. And I think the big thing was he was authentic, extremely gritty. He's just got that gritty, yodeling kind of voice that it's really hard to copy. And what really got him through the door was Sturgill Simpson hearing him at a live show when he had come down near Nashville, and Sturgill Simpson loved it. And so Sturgill Simpson's the one who kind of pushed him and got the album Purgatory going as well. And so Sturgill was the one who got him into the right ears. But ultimately, I think for both of them, it's an authenticity that you can't fake. And Tyler has been surrounded by controversy. A lot of his fans have turned on him for his political views or the type of music he's making. But I got nothing but respect. I don't care if I disagree with someone politically. The fact that he's willing to do that and he's unapologetic about it, can't do anything but respect a guy for that. And they kind of transcend genres. A really, really good artist in any genre is probably going to win fans over who normally don't like that genre. Yeah. I was told by the guy who managed Panic at the Disco. He's kind of one of my acquaintances. He and I were talking one day, and he told me that a good song, it would be a good song no matter what genre it's recorded in. And Zach Bryan and Tyler Childers write good songs, and it's their songs. They're the ones writing it. So many country artists sing other people's songs, which is fine, but you lose a layer of truth to it when they're singing someone else's songs.
I'm kind of backpedaling a little bit about Zach. He is just cranking them out, man. Like you said, I would not be surprised if he has 60 songs out by the end of the year. Just with American Heartbreak, the EP just put out last week or so.
Yeah.
And he's just a poet, man. I mean, the guy's just a true poet, and I love what you said about him in social media because he just gets it. But I know that you alluded to the fact a little bit ago that you were going to be, an album is in the works, that you're re-recording Anymore and all that good stuff. Do you have any more details on the album, or is there maybe any other songs that'll be dropping in the meantime, kind of leading up to that, or do you guys have a plan in place yet?
Yeah, so one of the complaints that I've been getting from fans is that we release singles, and we've only been releasing singles for about a year and a half, and people really wanted an album where songs that sounded similar to one another, songs that fit together could go on. And so I had this idea that I'm going to take a whole bunch of songs that sound similar to Anymore all the way back from the beginning of my career. We're going to remix and remaster or even re-record some of these songs. And the original idea was put together an EP around Anymore, because we were going to have the re-recording of Anymore, because I'm only making half the royalties from Anymore right now. And when we signed with the distributor that we're currently with, which is Symphonic Distribution, they kind of operate like an indie record label. And I feel like I can't give them Anymore because Anymore belongs to Universal. And so I wanted to give them a version of it. And then as I was doing that, I realized we have a really nice sounding live recording of Anymore. And I thought, some people might really like the live version. And so we have the Tin Barn session of Anymore, and then a lot of people kept tagging Philip Bowen in my video saying that he should really jump on and do some fiddle. And when I heard the fiddle version of Zach Bryan's Something in the Orange, I realized he could do something really cool and unique with this. And so I was like, all right, got 3 versions of Anymore already. And then I thought, the song Patience, the song Ain't Allowed to Be Sad, they definitely fit with Anymore in the style that it's in. But I've also got songs from old albums. One of those albums isn't available anymore because I took it off the market because I really just didn't like the way that it was just very poorly mixed. And so I've got some songs from that one and some songs from my very first record that we're going to redo and put them all. And then I realized by that time that I had an album's worth of songs instead of just an EP. And so it was kind of a fan demand that we put a bunch of these songs, remake them, remaster them, and make an album. But now I've kind of got the bug, and so now I've got 3 other EPs in the works behind that. And so I've kind of got this idea of Anymore is going to be the theme of this first album. All the songs kind of sound a bit like Anymore. The next one is going to focus on our darker, it's hard to explain, but we kind of have a collection of dark songs like Waiting Still. That was one of the songs that ESPN bought from us. And so Waiting Still was from an old album, and we remastered it and re-released it, and it didn't really make much of a buzz because I didn't really promote it much. But we've got a lot of darker songs like Waiting Still that have a very unique neat kind of sound to it, almost like a progressive kind of sound. And so I have an unreleased single right now that I'm sitting on that sounds like it would fit in Fleetwood Mac's album Dreams. And I didn't know what to do with it for the longest time because I really, really like it, and I think it could be a successful song, but I didn't have it didn't fit with the songs that I was releasing, and so I've got a EP of songs like that that we'll release after that, and then I've got a whole bunch of songs written that I haven't recorded yet that are much more grungy, dark, echoey, like Ozark Gothic. And so Ozark Gothic's going to find itself on an EP or an album with songs that I've written but haven't recorded yet that definitely fit that kind of what I would call Ozark grunge folk kind of sound. And then, past that, I've got 40, 50 unrecorded songs that I've written, and I'm not going to record all of them because I don't know if all of them deserve to be recorded. But yeah, I've got a plan in my head, going forward. I'd like to release something more meaty than just singles. And I've only had a bit of success with Spotify editorial playlists and whatever, so I was releasing singles to kind of cater to them. And now I just don't even want to try and cater to them anymore. Now that we got a fan base, I want to cater to them instead.
Sure. And I think that's important because, obviously I'm a country music fan myself, and I think that when artists I listen to kind of follow what the people are commenting on their social media or, sending them messages about, like, drop this, drop that. I think it's really cool when an artist can respond and, give their fans what they want versus just following a certain formula to try to make it, I guess you'd say, So I think that's going to be huge for you guys.
Well, I sure hope so, and I've grown to despise the phrase "make it" because whenever I talk to young artists and I ask them, "What's your goal? What's your goal this year?" and they're like, "I want to make it." And I'm like, "All right, that's not a goal. What does that even mean? Sure. What would mean making it for you?" And they're like, "Well, world famous, sold out stadium tours, millions of dollars." And I'm like, "All right, you need to calm down, buddy. That's it takes 10, 20 years to blow up overnight, my friend. So you got to get the basics down first."
Yeah.
You got to have a realistic, attainable goal, because I think too many people quit because they expect to, quote unquote, make it. Mm-hmm. And what you'll find is if you ask big artists, well-known artists, have they made it yet? They'll probably say no.
Yeah.
I get compared to all these artists that have 10, 20 times the amount of streams on streaming platforms as I do, and none of them feel like they've made it. There's I was talking to Poor Man's Poison, and they've got millions of monthly listeners. They don't feel like they made it. Right. They feel like things are a little bit more comfortable now. Sure. But they're not like, what does it mean to make it? They're like, well, people like our song, that's cool. And, if that's as far as the pressure goes, to just being like, I want to make songs that some people will think are cool. I would have felt like Hard Man to Love was a failure if I was comparing it to Anymore. Anymore kind of took off when I first released it, and Hard Man to Love didn't. And it's not gotten nearly as many streams as my other songs, but it's all right because some people are going to like it, some people aren't. And I think as long as artists are comfortable with the fact that you can't just make stuff that everyone's going to like. It's the same with content. I'm not going to make videos that everybody likes. And when I was trying to do that, I was not happy. For a while, I was just making videos about famous country artists and historical facts about them. People loved those videos. I made one about Alan Jackson. It had 2.6 million views. I made one about Garth Brooks. It had 1.7 million views. But I was just like, what am I doing? Like, this isn't helping my music at all. The people who love these videos don't like me. They just like the facts. It was just weird that I was getting followed by really rude people. Like, they were following me, being really rude to me in the comments in my videos, and I just thought, like, I don't want to be catering to these people. These people think country music died in the 80s. Mm-hmm. I'm a country artist. These are a bad sort of people to have as my audience.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, I feel you there. I know recently, I think was it this past weekend you did a show up in Missouri? Was that right, or was it the week before?
Yeah, it was on Saturday.
That's what I thought. I saw that on your TikTok or Instagram. I can't remember, but so I know you did that. Do you have any other gigs lined up for throughout the summer or later in the fall or anything just yet?
I don't. Like I was saying a bit earlier, I've been in talks with the creative team at Silver Dollar City, and we're talking about maybe doing something together. The only thing that I've got on my radar right now is my band partner Ben. His mom and dad are having a retirement party, and we are going to play their private retirement party. And so that's about as far as I have it right now. I'm kind of reclusive, and it took the owner of the barn house. It took him a lot. He took me out to dinner and bought me some good down home authentic fried chicken from down in southern Missouri, and that's what it took to get me to even do that gig that I did. And because I was just really nervous. It had been nearly a decade, and I didn't know if I would be good enough. I'm used to having a full band behind me and fiddle breaks and all sorts of exciting instrumental breakdowns, and I'm like, if it's just me playing and singing, is that going to be enough for people? Are people going to come expecting some huge, amazing show from me, and are they going to be disappointed? And so I played that show on Saturday. Supposed to be a small show. We were expecting 40 people to show up, and 150 people showed up instead.
Nice.
And yeah, a couple dozen people from TikTok came to see me, and I got really nice messages from them after, who said that they really enjoyed it and that I played well, and that was a huge confidence booster for me that maybe I can do this. And so you never know, I might have some pop-up gigs happening, and if things keep going well, I might start planning things ahead and promoting them and getting some sort of band together. If I play Silver Dollar City big folk festival that they do, where they've got famous bands coming in, I'm definitely going to put a band together for that, so it's not just me. So whenever I mess up, people can't hear me. And that's kind of a funny thing. A lot of big artists mess up all the time live, and you just don't even know. And then they always think after, like, oh, everybody heard it, my career's over. And whenever I'm talking with them, I'm just like, nope, nobody picked that up at all. Everybody's enamored.
Right.
And so yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a songwriters round. So songwriters rounds are where you have 3 songwriters go up on stage, and each one of them plays a song, and they kind of take turns playing a song, and then the other people have the choice of just listening, or they can start singing harmonies with you, or they can start playing with you. So one of the guys who came brought a little drum with him, and he started playing the drums with my songs. And I was like, oh, this is so fun. I haven't gotten to play live with people and just kind of connect. And so I wasn't planning on playing Cotton Eye Joe the Murder Ballad then. I hadn't even really practiced it, but I was like, I've got a drummer here. This is the song that I've got to play, because I think people in the audience were tired of slow, sad songs. And that song got people out of their seats, and people were dancing to Cotton Eye Joe the Murder Ballad. I'll tell you, it's a weird world we live in.
Oh, man, that's so true. Well, Ed, thanks so much for coming on tonight, man. We truly appreciate it. Why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners where they can find you out on social media and find all of your music?
Yeah, y'all can find me at Pawns or Kings at TikTok, and it's Pawns or Kings on Spotify, YouTube. I got a Twitter. The guys at Poor Man's Poison just convinced me to get a Twitter, so I'll put some stuff on that too. We're also on Instagram, and if you want to send me a message, send it on Instagram. That's what I respond to the most, and I love hearing from everybody. I respond to every message that I get. That's not just spamming me with telling me to make a video about their music. So anybody who wants to reach out to me, I love talking to y'all.
Absolutely. So you guys go check out Pawns Are Kings, their latest song that just dropped, Hard Man to Love. You guys will not be disappointed. Make sure you go check it out. Hit Ed up in the DMs, let him know what you think. And while you're at it, check us out on social media. You guys can find us all over. We're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. To our new listeners tonight, at Country Convos, you can find us there. And yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. We totally appreciate that as always. And until next time, keep it country and take care of each other.